Hugg joins us, and John, being an attorney, you certainly know something about details and picking them apart a little bit or putting them together. And you made a pretty interesting point just now about why politicians actually don't present, a strong plan.
Well, yeah, mind you, that's just my personal opinion.
I love it, though. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, I personally think that you don't get a lot of details in a plan because the more details you put out, the more they can be picked apart, and the more you can be, you can look foolish or be proven to look foolish.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Right. And I mean, if you take a big plan that is as big as, I'll put out the tax code because the taxes are something that everybody is discussing.
Right.
It's pretty easy to find a few pages in the tax code that you can make look silly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, John, you specialize in estate planning, business succession planning, and elder law. And, a lot of the agreements people enter into, the devil really is in the details. And as an attorney, you get to kind of, you'll go through these things, these documents, and figure out what works, what doesn't. In essence, you get to pick apart the plan maybe that somebody has presented to you.
Absolutely. That is a large part of what I do in general. And yes, going through, picking apart the plans and letting people know what they say, what they mean, and what they can be used for. I mean, the language, how that can be used and how it can be used against you. You get a general understanding of what you think you're going to get. You get a sales pitch, if you will, from somebody in a particular setting. And then, the documents may line up that way. They may not line up that way. I see that quite frequently.
Well, and especially, you work a lot with elder care and elder law. And it seems to me, and I am sure that this is probably a provable fact, is that elderly are sometimes taken advantage of with contracts. I mean, they tend to be a little bit more trusting. Where do you see that as kind of where people really need to be careful, especially with the older individuals, older family members? The documents they're asked to sign.
Right. Well, unfortunately, it seems to be that the older you get, the more you want things to be simple and easy and uncluttered and uncomplex. But unfortunately, in a lot of circumstances, they actually get more complex. So, for instance, if you are going to be leaving your home and moving into some sort of a facility, an assisted living facility or an adult family home, you are almost certain to be presented with a contract or a series of documents that will govern the relationship. The room that you're going to get, the rent that you're going to pay, you'll be paying for care, things like that on top of the actual room itself, how many meals are included with all of that type of thing. So you'll get a fairly detailed set of documents that says this is how everybody is supposed to act. And it's important to go through and understand sort of what those details are. And I'll touch on just a handful of the big things because there's so many different things that you can focus on.
Kind of like a politician's plan. I mean,
exactly.
Right? It's so big.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the things one of the big things that everybody should be paying attention to, and regardless of the place that they're going, is to look for. And
when you say place, you're talking about maybe a retirement community or elder care facility.
Right. Yeah, I'm talking about either an assisted living facility, an adult family home, or continuing care retirement community. So an assisted living facility is like an apartment, but you'll also get meals. You might get some light housekeeping, help with some other things, but generally you're independent. With an adult family home, you get all of those things, but you may get a little bit more assistance with your activities of daily living, bathing, and those types of things, some additional care. And then a continuing care retirement community, you start off essentially independent, and then at the end of the line, you are pretty much dependent on their care, and it's a continuum, and you pay quite heartily to receive that type of care. And so when you're heading into a situation like that, most every place is going to ask for money up front, a deposit, just like a rent, just like rent that you would pay. You're going to put down a deposit, maybe first and last month's rent. You want to look and see what the refund policy is. It's not necessarily going to be just like your rental agreement when you were renting an apartment in your 20s. One thing you may want to pay particular attention to is if you make your payment on the first day of the month and then you pass away on the second day of the month, is that prorated for the rest of the month? It really should be, but the document is going to tell you whether it's going to be prorated or whether it's not going to be prorated. And then also the timing of getting a refund coming back. Now, in these settings, it's not too terrible because we're talking about a few $1,000s in down payments and deposits. The world probably won't end if it takes a little while to get that money back. But there are other.
You may just not be buried for a while.
That may be. It may be very important. It depends on the circumstances.
Sure.
But still, it's not like you no longer have any more money. Period. For fares.
So that refund, this money that you maybe have spent, can you get it back to go to your heirs? Mm-hmm. If things aren't done the right way, how tilted can the scales get? Where maybe an elder person or, I guess anybody who's entering one of these facilities, how much can their signature cost them?
Well, their signature could, in certain circumstances, maybe cost quite a bit. I've seen situations where I've seen a set of documents and a really serious set of heavy documents. Really hundreds of pages of documents in terms of a buy-in into a particular type of a facility. And in one case, you don't necessarily have to pony up the actual cash. You can put up a promissory note secured by your house. But the documents also say that if your house doesn't sell by a certain time, then they get to foreclose on your house. So if you had, equity in that
like the house that you just moved from.
Exactly. Yes. So the people that I was dealing with in that specific situation, I don't think they really understood the ramifications that they were going to be giving basically a promissory note and deed of trust to a community on that house. And if it didn't, they thought they had the time to sell. If it didn't sell but it was very clear that if it didn't sell within a period of time, what the rights of the community were, and the rights in that case were to foreclose. And so maybe you're not, in that case, you're certainly not getting the value of your house in all likelihood. I've seen other situations where you might put down more than $500,000 to buy into a particular community. And
what do you mean by buy-in?
Buy-in?
Yeah, you buy in. Because you think like you're going to go rent you talked to a minute ago, you might rent a room, you might get care, you might have somebody help with your meals or laundry or cleaning. Mm-hmm. What is the buy-in function?
Well, there are certain types of communities. Certainly not every community out there requires a buy-in. Actually, very few require an actual buy-in. But there are a handful, and they're generally very upscale. They're very, very nice. Certainly, you're going to get a beautiful condo or even a nice little bungalow on a golf course, something like that. And you become a member of this whole community. But you basically, you put up whatever the entry fee is, hundreds of thousands of dollars in almost every case. It's almost always refundable. What they do is they put that money on deposit, and then the money that earns subsidizes your monthly payments as you go forward. And then you're supposed to get the principal back at the end of the day. And again, talking about the devil being in the details, you want to look and see what that refund policy is, because I've seen some where there isn't a drop-dead date for refunding that money. Some are very good. Under no circumstances will we owe you money more than 1 year after you vacate the premises for any reason. That's something you would definitely want to see. Look for something like that. But I've seen other ones where it's a lot more nebulous and a lot more loosey-goosey than that, where it's basically when somebody else reoccupies your unit, then we'll refund your money. Well, who knows when that's going to be?
They may not be showing your units. Right?
Exactly.
There could be a whole back-end process of not trying to sell that one.
Right. That is very, very possible. Yeah. And the contract is going to drive the obligations of the parties. And if it doesn't say we have a duty to show your apartment or to turn your apartment before other apartments or condos or whatever, you may
bungalows,
just be bungalows, whatever it might be. You may be waiting for quite a long period of time to get that refund. And if that is, when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're talking about money that families need and could use and can inherit. Some of these things, just because you move out and then later pass away, doesn't mean you all of a sudden necessarily get your money. or your estate gets it, your heirs may have to wait, the same time frame as the contract.
Well, I mean, that really, you talk about buying in, but that sounds like it almost handcuffs somebody. I mean, they may decide they want to move. Maybe they want to move to Arizona. I mean, maybe they might not be incapacitated. They might just want to move.
Yeah, and that's a considerable amount of money, especially when you're that old. You probably have a lot of healthcare costs that money is supposed to take care of.
That's very true. Both very valid points. I mean, that's
why we have a show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We're here with John Hugg, attorney with Hugg Associates. John, we have a few minutes left before we have to go to break. When you start looking at these agreements, I mean, I guess, from the top, we talked about politicians not really being able to present a plan because it can be picked apart. As an attorney, when somebody brings you a contract, I mean, that's really what people should be doing, I guess, is taking the contract to an attorney because now you can pick it apart.
I would strongly recommend that in a lot of contexts. I mean, sometimes what you're going to get with a lot of, say, adult family homes or assisted living facilities is you might get a 2 or 3 page contract that isn't too terrible, that isn't too onerous, and it's fairly understandable. But when you're talking about certain other settings where you're getting literally 5 and 6 different types of documents that are 30 and 40 pages in length, that read like your deed of trust and your mortgage and a loan.
Because the other lawyer is the one who wrote all these papers, right?
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. When you're talking about something like that, I mean, it literally becomes almost like handling a business transaction between sophisticated parties. The only problem is that one party is sophisticated, the other party isn't. And unfortunately, these are, at the moment at least, relatively lightly regulated situations. So there isn't a bevy of laws out there that says that this can be done and this can't be done. So the contract really does kind of drive the whole situation. And if there's something that you don't understand, and it's a pretty good bet that that's the case, you should definitely talk with an attorney about at least knowing and going into it with your eyes open and understanding what.
Well, it would seem like at 40 pages, 60 pages, 100 pages, and it is something where some of these, as you said, it's not regulated. I mean, a mortgage is, 100 pages, but I mean, geez, you're talking about one of the most regulated businesses around right now. Mm-hmm. Entering in something like this, it seems to me that it's almost like a no-brainer. Look, it's 100 pages of legalese, and you're about to cut a check for maybe $500,000. Mm-hmm. You might want to know why you're cutting a check.
Absolutely. And how and when you can get that money back, if that's what the deal is. If the deal says it's 100% refundable, then let's make sure we know exactly when it's going to be refunded.
Fine print, man. That's when you got to get out the magnifying glass, figure out exactly when you're going to get that money back.
Exactly.
Do you see, I mean, is it considered where, I mean, I guess where some of these companies is it considered really taking advantage of elderly? I mean, is there a line that is sometimes crossed?
Well, in my personal opinion, the answer is yes. That's only my personal opinion. Certainly there are circumstances where the line would be crossed. The problem is going to be determining where that line is and proving that the line was actually crossed. Generally, if you're an adult and you have some understanding of who you are and where you are and so what's going on around you and what you own and things like that, you're probably going to be viewed as having capacity to enter into a contract. Even if you don't really understand the full ramifications of it. Unfortunately, some other things too, just to kind of be aware of, and right along those same lines, is if you're a child of an older individual who has had any type of a disagreement with any counterparty, facility or a care provider or somebody like that, it's not uncommon for that other party to put a release in front of you, trying to settle any disputes and get you to release any claims that you might have in exchange generally for them releasing any claims.
It's like an insurance company.
Yeah. Exactly. And so if you're ever presented with that type of situation, and I know it's not uncommon, believe me.
And it's tempting. I mean, it's kind of like sign this and you get your check.
Well, it's sign this. Maybe you get your check. If it was that simple, it might be okay. But and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not so simple. And so you need to be aware that you could very well be waiving very, very significant legal rights. And you don't want to do that without legal representation. In my opinion, you don't ever really want to do that without legal representation.
Well, John, I mean, it seems to me that making sure that you know what you're signing all the time would be probably pretty good advice.
I think so.
Well, John, thanks so much for joining us again. John Hugg, attorney with Hugg Associates. When we come back, you do need an attorney. I think you need one based on that conversation.
Yep.
I'd be blown away if you're signing things without it. You could lose $500,000, it sounds like, and not even know why. But another person you may need right now is a real estate agent, especially because, well, market's hot, weather's hot too. I guess they're all coinciding. But, really you do end up in a place where if you want to buy a house, you're going to have to find somebody who can guide you in the right ways because, as we've talked about for a while now, it's a hot market and there's a lot of multiple offers. How can you get your offer accepted? When we come back, we'll let you know. You're listening to Roush and Ahmed.